how was the decision
Demitir Anderson Moreira.
to fire Anderson Moreira?
Well, I think,
Isso aqui tudo atrás dele é Oscar, tá? Isso aqui tudo atrás é Oscar. Tron, esquece. King Chief, sei lá que porra de filme é esse. Oscar. Efeito especial aqui, ó. Ah, ele tem uma cópia do Oscar, né? Não! É Oscar, porra! Ele tem Oscar! Ah, um só, né? 8! 8 estatuetas! Uma, não, duas. Octa! Octa campeão do Oscar. Percy Jackson ali. Porra, não fode. Maluco.
that kind of decision can only come after watching a lot of football.
Sabe muito.
You'll read opinions out there, who's advising.
Lembrando que, pô, falei que eu não ia parar toda hora, mas eu tenho um problema. O único bilionário maneiro do mundo é John Textor, tá? Ah, Pedro, mas você odeia bilionários? Odeio. Ah, Pedro, mas agora só porque ele comprou o teu time ele é bom. Correto. Ele é ditador? Não. É um americano safado? É. Vai passar pano? Todos que eu achar no mundo eu vou passar.
Textor and what's he being told and why would he do this? And this gentleman had an incredible success record. He brought us a championship.
Perfeito, até agora.
I can tell you, going into the process of buying in as a partner of Botafogo, making a movement on the coach was not on the radar at all.
Mas
and I watched virtually every game I could get access to from last season.
Não viu.
I watched every game.
Mentiu. Tá ligado? Agora ele mentiu legal. Ele não viu o Botafogo Confiança. 1-0, primeiro jogo do Anderson. Sufoco. Ele não viu esse jogo. Porque se ele tivesse assistido esse jogo, ele não compraria o Botafogo. Que ele fala assim, rapaz, não tem o que tirar daí. Não viu.
Game kind of in the recent run-up in the the Rio State Championship, and what I really saw was a brand of football that did not look like what I envisioned for Botafogo in the future. Certainly Mr. Anderson did an incredible job coming into the middle of the season and getting a championship. I mean, it's the most important thing he could have done for Botafogo.
Perfeito.
Botafogo is not a club that should ever be in the second division, and
Perfeito.
The speed, the efficiency by which he returned the club to the top division is remarkable. His winning percentage on the field against his
É o famoso dito isso, mete o teu pé.
competition is remarkable. But we have to look to Serie A, and we have to look at
Serie A.
greater challenges, and we have to see what kind of football program we want to be.
Ele não viu o jogo, ele só viu os cortes. Bom pra caralho.
And you go into the Rio State Championship with, I don't want to make any comment about any particular player.
Mas vão rodar.
Men that are fighting for their spots and fighting for us.
Us.
Right?
Ele fala como
But
nós já.
a lot of talk, even from the coach, that he didn't have the right people, that he didn't have the right squad. Well, you're going against competition, which is, in lower divisions, that don't have anywhere near the right squad
Ele viu os gols da rodada do Casé.
to compete with Botafogo. So how did we compete with those teams? What was our style of play? Did I see the right organization, and positioning and shape of the squad?
Além de ser o único bilionário gente boa, ele é o único americano do mundo que sabe de futebol. De resto, ninguém sabe. Foda-se.
Right. Were the responsibilities of the players, was it clear what they were trying to do? What was the identity of
Não
this
tem
club?
identidade. E o Capelo lá.
You can fail at what you're trying to do, but you can still see what you're trying to do. And I had a hard time seeing the Botafogo way. Like, what are we trying to do? And you can't say, well, I don't have the players for Serie A. Well, of course, right? We're going to be adding players.
Mas e o Enzo vai
But
conseguir?
that can't be the reason you explain
Não pode ser.
a draw or a near loss to a lower division team. They don't have the players for Serie A either. So I looked for clues as to what kind of football club we would be under his leadership.
E não vai ter.
And he's a very good man. He
Perfeito.
deserves to be treated very well in the history of our club.
Transição.
You know, I have opportunities with the new law to get out of the old contract. Well, we're not getting out of his contract. We you know, owe him the respect of you know, contractually paying out what we need.
Até porque tu é bilionário, né, meu chapa? Se não você pagar o contrato do Anderson Moreira, tu tem que se fuder. Tu tem $1 bilhão de dólar, bilhões. O que ele vai ganhar é merreca pra tu. É um almoço fora.
Pay and thanking him for everything he did. But
Tô contigo, John.
I didn't see the kind of football that I wanted to play. I didn't see the shape. I didn't see a vision.
Caralho, velho. É que eu não posso... Rapaziada, eu não posso levantar aqui, papo reto. Se eu quiser beber água, eu não posso, porque vai aparecer o meu pau duraço e eu vou tomar ban. Caralho, eu tô ereto!
And what shape is that? I mean, you want a Botafogo that's offensive or that has a solid defense? What kind of football style are you expecting?
Ah, eu quero saber a resposta dele.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Portugal, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, I think that Portugal, people that have built academies, that have coached in Portugal, then moved on to coach elsewhere in Europe,
Portugal é referência.
have a great understanding, not just because of language.
Vai vir um português, né?
Everybody
Vai vir o Luiz Castro lá, do que era do Shakhtar.
says, oh, because it's the same language. It's not anywhere near the same country. But I do think because of the language, there has been more of a
União
connection
Brasil,
between Portugal and Brazil,
Portugal.
which has created, you know, over many, many years before me.
Óbvio, teve um genocídio histórico aqui no nosso Brasil. Com os caras. Esse é o elo. Passando a faca em todo mundo, destruindo o nosso país.
A desire, a propensity for the people of Portugal to look to Brazil
De destroçar o país.
try to understand the Brazil game and the Brazil
Aí,
players.
beleza.
And I think that's why Portugal has become such an effective bridge between the playing style, the creativity, and the technical capabilities of a player in Brazil and Europe more broadly, right? It's almost like the step.
É impressionante, né? O cara... Tem coisas que não mudam. O cara é bilionário e o dinheiro dele vem de efeito especial. E mesmo assim, a imagem da webcam dele é uma merda. Cara, se esse cara não tem uma imagem 4K, quem vai ter? Ninguém tem o direito de cobrar de ninguém. Vocês estão cobrando o Casimiro aí, sua webcam é uma merda. Olha desse cara. Olha desse cara, irmão. O cara construiu bilhões de dólares em efeito especial, mano. E a imagem dele tá pixelada, porra. A minha imagem hoje tá melhor que a dele. Dá pra ver que eu tô com suado. Porra, exatamente. A minha webcam é muito melhor. É muito melhor, pô. Caralho, que várzea, moleque.
Stepping stone for Brazil players, for Brazil football into Europe. Now, on the other side of that equation, you know, with Brazil over here and Portugal kind of in the middle sometimes as an intellectual stopping ground onto Europe, you know, highly structured, highly disciplined, you know, big spacing, you know, moving the ball around, demoralizing your opponent with possession, right?
O nome pra isso que ele tá falando é Fernando Diniz. Bola, posse de bola, toque.
The press, which you see happening in
Fernando Diniz assume Botafogo.
The games I'm watching in Botafogo, ends up becoming effective against Botafogo right now because we don't have the discipline to possess. You know, when a guy runs halfway across the field to press you and put pressure on you, and then you're not calm and you make a mistake and you distribute incorrectly, it's a turnover, and then they have a counter strike. Well, they're going to keep pressing. But what you see this year's game, Benfica versus Bayern Munich, I was at the Stadium of Light for that game. And anytime Benfica would rise up to challenge with their great athletes and their incredible ambition, Bayern Munich could just demoralize them with passing the ball around, you know, and then the press gets tired and the press stops. And then Bayern Munich just waits and waits and waits, and then they pick you apart, right? And it went from every...
Então o que falta pra gente é o Gnabry, o Kimmich, o Neuer, não é isso? Lewandowski. Então basicamente isso. Eu aceito ser o Bayern de Munique das Américas. Tá tranquilo. Ah, Pedro, você não falou que odeia o Bayern de Munique? Irmão, eu tô no meu direito de ser hipócrita. 25 anos sem título de expressão, meu camarada. Esquece. Esquece. Se eu quiser falar bem de bilionário, se eu quiser falar bem de Bayern de Munique, eu vou falar. E você aceite o meu discurso, seu babaca.
Everybody in the stadium thinking, you know, we're in this game. We're in this game, to you were never in the game, and it ends up being a 4-goal win or something, right? So I think what you see in Europe, you see systems where the athletes are nowhere near as good as they are in Brazil, especially when you get into parts of Eastern Europe and Russia, and yet these systems end up being very effective at taking moderate athletes, many great athletes in that part of the world, and then turning them into machines, right? And, you know, my God, if you could take that structure and these systems and bring these to the athletes of Brazil,
pra ficar de pau duro mesmo, tem jeito.
Where there's a meet in the middle, right? I mean, nobody in Brazil wants to be told that we're bringing Europe to you and going to force you to accept our way, but you know, football is a global game. We have to look all around the world to the best examples of success. And you're starting to see the most consistent, you know, forms of success playing out right on fields in front of us with teams like PSG and Manchester City. So let's talk about that for a minute. It's Manchester City. They are incredibly patient. Right? They move the ball around.
Pelo campo.
Great first touch. Great calmness. Of course, they have great athletes, right? But more than anything, if you're calm, you can slow down the game in your mind. You can see everything in...
pra isso aí precisa realmente de jogador bom, né? Porque você deixar... Você pode falar os caralho disso aí. Mas se o seu ponta direito, com todo respeito, tá? For o Varley, o batedeira, não vai ter calma, não. Não vai ter como. O bagulho é trazer jogador que... Beleza, tamo aí. Entendeu com a parada? Se o seu zagueiro for, com todo respeito também, o Mezenga... Pô, gente, o Mezenga não vai fazer isso. O meio-campo Ricardinho, ex-Ceará, não vai fazer isso.
Slow motion. Your heart rate is a little bit lower than players that play with a high level of panic, right? And so... They're calm, maybe because they're recruited that way. They're personally identified that way. They're calm because their first touch is so skillful. They don't lose time collecting the ball when the defense is attacking. Whatever the reason is, there's a calmness to Manchester City that you see that allows them to be very intelligent and very strategic. So what I'd like to see in the Botafogo way over time, number one, I want it to be clear 3 to 5 years from now that there is a Botafogo way.
Tá maluca! Tá maluca! Eita! Vambora!
I want people to see us play, and from academy all the way on up, they recognize what we're trying to do.
Eu falei com uma fonte minha dentro do Botafogo, que eu até falei hoje na TNT. Uma das primeiras coisas que ele perguntou, primeiras horas visitando o Botafogo, foi: qual é o estilo do Botafogo? Como é que você joga no Sub-9? Como é que você joga no Sub-11? Tá ligado? E não existe Sub-9 no Botafogo, se eu não me engano. Então, porra... Que isso? Só vou acreditar quando começar.
I would like...
Fala, fonte! Aí mexeu com o homem!
These systems of Europe to be combined with the talents of Brazil, the beautiful game, as I think Brazil invented, combined with some of the newer methods. And what that means is great patience and structure in the back. It means center backs that are highly skilled in collecting the ball. They're highly skilled at distributing the ball, long directional passes. And and they're patient. They have to be fast, right? Because in the modern game, your right back and left back are flying up the field. And so things don't always go as you expect. So every now and then you find yourself with only 2 in the back or 1 in the back or 3 in the back. And that center back better be quick, right? They have to be highly technical. They have to be very patient. They have to be calm. They should not panic on the press.
Pelo jeito, o Leandro Castan que não vai ser que vai vir Botafogo. Pelo jeito, Leandro Castan tem chance de pintar aqui, hein, rapaziada?
They should know what their 3 options are. But when they get into trouble, they should be lightning quick. They should be the best athletes on your field because they're your last line of defense.
O melhor do seu time tem que ser o zagueiro rápido? É foda. O Carly eu acho que vai rodar, hein? Eu acho que o Carly vai de ralo.
Cannot lose a game if you prevent them from scoring, right? So being strong in the back, is the most important thing. On the wings, whatever the formation, let me just talk generally because I'm not an architect of the game, right? It's if we are
esse cara fez Percy Jackson, tá ligado? Como é que alguém pode ser bom nas duas coisas? Como é que alguém pode ser ao mesmo tempo entender de futebol e fazer o filme Tron, que é tudo de laser e luz e LED? Que porra é essa, cara?
Patient and we are well structured and we are compact in the back, then we advance the ball up the field.
Ainda bem que a gente não acabou de vender um zagueiro rápido pra caralho, que é o Benevenuto, né? Ainda bem que a gente não vendeu ele a preço de banana pro Fortaleza, pra pagar a conta. Se tivesse acontecido isso, seria um caos, né? Mas, ainda bem que não aconteceu.
Slowly, right? We don't look to bomb it over the top unless we're in a moment that calls for that.
O cara mandou ali. Ele fala inglês benzão, né?
We advance our entire formation up the field, and we do our best to maintain possession at all costs. We do our best to dominate.
Tá, eu não quero Benevenuto não, tá? Eu não quero Benevenuto. Já tem um corte meu, inclusive exclamação corte. Tem um corte meu falando dele. Ele no Botafogo foi uma decepção inacreditável. Só tô falando que na cabeça do John Textor, ele seria um nome que pelo menos nesse início se encaixa ali. Mas eu quero que não faço questão nenhuma de senhor Benevenuto aqui. Não tá indo exclamação corte, não? Ué? Será que o robozinho não tá funcionando? Pô... Tenta botar aí, exclamação roupa. Vê o que acontece. Pô, aí me arrebenta. Caralho. Tenta aí. Pô, que robô filho da puta do caralho, mano. Pô, aí é triste demais. Sem nem mudar essa merda. Calma. Cloudbot. Ih, vou fazer merda. Ih, vai dar merda aqui. Calma, agora vai. Ah, já achei! Vai dar bom, hein? Commands. Cara, eu sou muito brabo. Que isso? Ué? Exclamação. Ué? Caralho, mané. Agora vai. Exclamação. Agora vai. Tenta aí. Exclamação roupa. Pô, é triste demais, mano. Irmão, alguma coisa tá dando merda aí. Não sou eu. Triste. Pô, o bot tá me arrebentando. Triste demais, mano. Vamos lá. Vamos lá, rapaziada.
Dominate the opponent with possession, with pace, We want to demoralize them. There are games where I'll see my favorite teams lose.
Meus times favoritos? Olha só, quem são essas putas que estão andando com você, João? Você tem direito a ter 3 times favoritos. Botafogo de Futebol e Regatas em primeiro, Crystal Palace em segundo e aquela porra que você comprou na Bélgica. Não vem de times favoritos não, que eu não sou essas mulheres que vocês andam não. Caralho. Porra. Me respeita na minha casa.
We had a tie the other night where we dominated possession. At Crystal Palace in the second half of the game.
Essa aí pode... Eu faço vista grossa.
And we didn't get the goals that we wanted to get on top and win the game. But that happens.
Molenbeek, porra de time belga do caralho. Da Bélgica só... A Bélgica só fez 3 coisas boas na vida. Batata frita. Perfeito. Chocolate. E Andrés Pereira. São as 3 coisas da Bélgica que me fizeram sorrir na vida. De resto, esquece. Esquece. Nada presta. Nada.
From time to time. But if you play that way and you dominate possession, you will, over the course of a long season, have many, many wins. I think that once you get the ball into the middle third and the final third,
Começou
you also
aí.
have to have the ability to possess even in advanced states. There's a bit of panic that often develops when you're in the other box and you're trying to score and legs are flying around and everybody's trying to get it in the net. Well, the best teams are still patient in those moments in the final third, aren't they? We see this, right? My favorite player on earth, Bernardo Silva.
Pô, essa frase que me arrebenta, mano. É essa frase que me arrebenta. Pô, tu tá de sacanagem com a minha cara. Não, vou ter que printar. Não, aí não tem como. Aí... Aí tu me arrebenta, João. Pô, aí... Caralho, mano. Aí é foda, João. Aí é foda, João. Qual é, doidão? Pô, tuitei, mano. Qual é, cara? Meu jogador preferido na Terra, vírgula. Bernardo Silva.
Silva, right? I mean, does this guy ever look like he's in a panic? It doesn't matter where he is on the field.
É porque ele não veio no Rio de Janeiro. Arma na cabeça, ali no Engenho de Dentro, terça-feira à noite, sem jogo. Porra, aquilo ali é perigoso demais.
As calm and as creative and as technical. It doesn't matter if he's in the defensive third or in the box. So I don't know how to build that. I know how to identify the people that have built that. And so in a coach, we're looking for somebody that, that plays, with structure, advancing, probing. When it's not there, bring it back, working around, switch it, possession, above everything else has got to be what we start with.
And do you think Luis Castro is the man to apply that philosophy? Will you announce him soon?
Reported that we're talking to
Capelo é filha da puta, mano.
Luis Castro. We've talked to many coaches. We've talked to coaches in and around Portugal. We've talked to coaches across Europe. We've talked to 2 situations in Brazil.
Fernando Diniz e Dário Lourenço. Cravo. Ele deve ter falado com o Cuca e... Porcibal Diniz, foda-se. Qual é, Diniz? E aí, irmão? O que tá com... Qual vai, mano?
And I'd say one of the problems that you run into is you can find a terrific coach.
Perfeito.
That terrific coach doesn't always come with a terrific team.
Isso quer trazer os dois.
So you may find the best coach and he might be sitting in a restaurant in Rio de Janeiro, but if he doesn't have the right staff, then he doesn't really have the right system, because then we have the risk of having to put together his team. We have the risk of hoping that there's communication, perfect chemistry between the assistants. Game substitutions are often made because of what the assistant.
Por que ele botou um restaurante do Rio de Janeiro no meio aí, cara? Ele falou de rolê, restaurante do Rio de Janeiro? Ou ele vai falar, aí no restaurante?
Sees, not what the head coach sees, right? So, that coordination and that chemistry in the team has got to be there. So, we've looked at coaches all over the world.
Cara, por que ele falou de restaurante, mano? E você vai estar sentado no restaurante do Rio de Janeiro? Que é isso?
But really what we're looking for is an entire system, an entire staff. We also are going to be adding teams to Botafogo.
Isso é pica demais.
A B team, like you have in Portugal, these great B teams.
Isso é pica demais.
See, they're not just the reserve team, they're the people that are fighting. Younger maybe, maybe they're medical.
Cara, isso vai ser muito foda. Tipo assim, daqui a um tempo, esse Botafogo, se tudo der certo, esse que tem um Porto B, tem o Real Madrid Castilha, a gente vai olhar pra esse Botafogo B e falar assim, caralho, moleque, esse Botafogo B é muito melhor do que o Botafogo de 2020. Esse Botafogo B daria 4-0 no Botafogo 2015, tá ligado?
Rotation, but they're fighting to be on the first team. So we're going to be growing our staff. We're going to be identifying the talented people that exist there today, and we're going to be creating jobs for them, because we have to have a first team, we have to have a B team, we have to have the very best of the U20 space as well.
Caralho.
So I just think the leader, in the case of Mr. Henderson, to me, didn't give me that comfort that we were going to build this type of total football organization with a recognizable system and style of play, to recruit into that system, to give confidence to the players when they're a part of that system. They all know what the other on the field is going to be doing at all times, right? And this is why we made this decision.
On the management side, what you're trying to build takes time to have it. And at the same time, Botafogo's fans and also the Brazilian culture, I mean, the football culture, but in Brazil it's worse. Immediatism is a problem. The fans want to win today. They are sad because they lost the last game on the state championship. How can you conciliate the pressure and the...
Caralho! Isso aqui é pergunta de um cara preparado, tá? Moleque, que pergunta pica! Não vi ninguém falando isso com ele até agora. Caralho, perguntaralhaça, bolada. Moleque, perguntão. Se eu tivesse feito isso, teria tido orgulho dessa pergunta. Capelo, tu é pica.
The vision you have to the football department.
That sense of calmness, the calm that I want on the field, that's the calm that I feel, right? When I make these decisions.
Não respondeu a pergunta.
The fans, they're not the adversary when I make this metaphor, when I talk about the other team, but the fans, their ambition, their desire, I read all of their messages on Twitter.
Será que ele já leu a mensagem? Pô, irmão, acabei de postar um print seu, João. Acabei de postar um print seu te zoando, mano, do Bernardo Silva. Perdão, viu? Se você estiver vendo esse vídeo aqui com um tradutor do seu lado, foi mal, meu camarada. Eu te amo. Tu é pica. Brabo pra caralho. Perdão. Às vezes a gente comete um equívoco. 25 anos sem título de expressão. Desculpa. Assim que você me der um título, pode contar comigo pra passar pano pras merdas tudo que você faz. Tamo junto. Você mora aqui, ó. Mora no meu peito, John. Vambora.
I don't have anybody that manages that. And so I feel that pressure, but I feel a sense of calm in the face of it, because I know what they don't know. I know what's happening on next Tuesday. I know what's happening on next Friday.
É o que então, ô caralho? Tá de ingresia? Tá escondendo o jogo, filha da... Mentira. John, você está vendo isso, me desculpa, isso aqui é um personagem. Se você me chamar na xincha pra tomar um chopp, Tamo junto, é nóis. Porra, vou te perdoar. Eu falo inglês, hein? I speak English fluently. I lived a year in Wichita, Kansas. I graduated at Heights High School in Wichita, Kansas. Alright? So let's have a drink. I love Bernardo Silva too. I love him. Maybe I'm just talking about this so I can win your heart. But let's have a drink. You can pay for me because, as I said, you have billions of dollars. Okay? So let's go. The only nice billionaire in the world. You and Thiaguinho.
Friday, and I feel very comfortable that we're going to be giving them what they want. It's not reasonable for them to think that before I am even the owner, I'm not the owner, right?
No.
It's hard to make decisions like we made this last week because I can't make those decisions independently. We've got a club, we've got historical relationships, we have a transition committee that's 3 people from the club and 2 people from my organization. So, they'll send me notes that say, oh my God, we lost to, Fluminense and it was horrible, right? But I can't do anything about it right now.
Por que não pode, ô caralho? Sacanagem, mentira.
That's not true. I can't do everything right now. So,
caralho.
As far as what they want the same thing I want. That's why I don't mind the criticism, I don't mind the pressure.
Não sei, a gente quer mais do que você. A gente quer mais do que ele, com certeza. A gente tem mais... A gente... Pô, eu quero ficar doidão e dormir na rua depois de ganhar um título grande. É isso que eu quero. Tu quer isso? Não. Tu quer sucesso. Eu quero tatuar o meu braço na mesma noite que a gente for campeão da Libertadores. Eu quero tatuar uma taça toda torta, embriagado. É isso que eu quero. É exatamente isso que eu quero. Você não quer isso. Você tem que ter uma lisura no processo e um sucesso esportivo. Eu quero dormir na rua. Eu quero pichar alguma coisa e ser preso. É isso que eu quero.
And unfortunately, this transition process is happening during the very important Rio State Championship.
Não é tão importante, mas tudo bem. Se ganhar, lindo.
As much as we and this process is having a negative impact on this current tournament.
Mas tudo bem.
There's some things that can't be helped. Like you may identify the very best player and it still may take you 2 weeks to get his agent, his lawyer, and everybody on board. If you're bringing a player from out of market, then you have work visa issues. If you're bringing a coaching staff from out of market, then you have all kinds of issues, with the complexity of their contracts, the Brazilian law versus the law from whence they came. So these decisions are being made very quickly, but the process is unfortunately very frustrating because there's a lawyer, there's an agent, there's a difference between the laws of one nation versus another. All of that stands between what they want and what I want, Now, of course, we're going to be adding players, but what I don't do at the end of a game, I will never do. You'll never hear me say at the end of a loss, oh God, we need players. Every football, because that's an insult to the players that are there, right? And everyone.
Que bom que você sabe que essa parte é com a gente. Que bom que você sabe que o queremos jogador vai ser cantado. Em algum momento, a gente pode ganhar tudo. Mas em algum momento o queremos jogador vai rolar. E é bom até que você não fale português. Porque se o senhor ficar na reta, não vai entender porra nenhuma.
One of these players, they can be, disliked by the fans on one day, and they can be the hero the next day, and everybody has that potential. Some do, some don't. Some won't rise to the level of Serie A, but we already know that. And so we're bringing in players. Most importantly, was to put the football department in place. I spent a lot of time with Eduardo Freeland. He's incredibly, intellectual, strategic. He's a good critic.
Podia cortar um pouco o cabelo, Freeland. Tá com o cabelo... Porra, tá cheio. Vou mostrar aqui pra vocês. Pô, tem que dar uma batidinha, mano. Tudo bem, passa uma imagem de seriedade, mas... Pô, aqui. Não tá... Pô, gente. Dá pra cortar, tá ligado? Pera aí. Tô na frente, né? Pera aí, botar mais aqui. Pô, ainda tá. Puta que pariu. Aqui, aqui. Pô, irmão, raspa essa porra, sei lá. Não dá pra ver? Ainda não? Aqui, dá pra ver, pô. Tá ligado, Freeland? Feedback. Só um feedback. Porra. Não, muda, sei lá. Te passa um pouco profissional, beleza, mas caralho, estilo também faz. O quê? Sei lá, mano. Não me pega esse cabelo, não. Tá muito cheio. Muito diferente. Enfim, vamos lá. Desvirtuei, né? Falei que não ia. Falei que ia ser rápido, não tô sendo. Correto?
Critical thinker. He's a good man. He's a big part of the organization. But in a sporting director, you know, what you're looking for...
Caralho. Elogiou pra caralho o Freeland, meteu um dito isso, né? Pô, o cara é bom pra caralho, pô, intelectual, maneiro. Dito isso, vai ser rebaixado. Freeland, tamo junto, te amo, hein?
Is a really big universe of international relationships.
Ele não tem isso.
You have to be very well liked and respected, not only within Brazil, but beyond Brazil. Those relationships are how you hear of special situations. The fans see players that are available in the newspaper. A sporting director sees players that are coming available because they know of a situation that's developing at another team that nobody knows about. And those relationships and that, you know, sort of global kind of view...
Tá geral falando que esse Mazuco que a gente trouxe é meio merda, né? Mas eu também já ouvi falando de gente que, porra, ele nunca teve um time com dinheiro pra trabalhar. Ele trabalhou no Cruzeiro, lixo, no Vasco, pobre, no Coritiba, não é? E mais alguma coisa.
Of our pool of talent is what's most important in a sporting...
Cara, o que eu vou falar de merda na tier list daqui a pouco caralho, enfim. O maluco falou ali, olha como o meu curso é importante. O que eu vou falar de merda é assustador.
Director. Now, fans can look at the success and failure of Andre historically and say, oh my God, you know,
olha lá.
He doesn't have a great track record. Well, how do they know? You know, every one of these teams has
caralho. Toma, filhas da puta do chat.
Especially in Brazil.
Tá em choque?
Financial restraints.
O cara falou, ele de fato sabe o que vai acontecer no dia seguinte, né? Vocês estão criticando aqui, ele logo depois falou do Mazu. Cara, vai tomar no cu todo mundo aí, vocês.
Fights that happen internally, good fights, when people are fighting over a player, how decisions are made. And then you have the fact that the people you get sometimes are the greatest decisions you've made, but they don't play out on the field. They're human beings. You know, they're emotional, they're physical. And so what I like in a sporting director is somebody that is respected and liked and has great relationships around the world. It increases the universe of potential talent from which we can draw. I think failure is the best teacher.
No.
You show me somebody that's only had success, and I'll show you somebody that knows nothing, right? And I've had great failure in my life. I'm defined.
Que essa compra do Botafogo não seja um dos seus fracassos, né, ô John? Que você, né? Beleza, o fracasso é o melhor professor, mas que já teve professor pra caralho. Já teve professor pra caralho na tua vida aí. Que seja agora momento só de, né? Entendeu?
By my failure. I'm proud of the way I and my family came back from that failure. But failure, you know, wins and losses at other clubs. I mean, Andre has incredible Serie A experience. He's got great relationships.
Valeu, Adriana Pau Canhoto. Eu parei especificamente pra falar o seu, porque o seu arroba me pega demais. Hoje tem sorteio de 2 camisas pra todo mundo que for sub ou subprime, não importando se tá online, hein? Basta apenas, exclusivamente, você ser sub ou subprime. A tier list nem começou. Quando acabar aqui a gente começa.
Really well liked. You know, this idea of who's getting in my head and who's advising Mr. Textor is like nobody. I learn about people and I learn about things from all parts of the world. And we learned about Andre from very respected relationships that we have in Europe. And he's known as being a very, very approachable, very tactical, very intelligent man that people in other parts of the world like. So that's what I want in a sporting director. Now, if I were maybe a social club president and my real job was running...
Cada coisa que ele fala é um tapa na cara de caralho, irmão. Tá maluco? Porra!
A business, or I was a lawyer, I was doing something else with my life while I was president of the club, I'd be looking for somebody with a perfect track record. Because it's the only way I would know. Like, geez, he's been perfect. Right? Let me hire him. But if I'm a football guy, I mean, I watch 250 games a year, many of them from the grass, you know?
Tu assiste 250 jogos por ano? Não assiste nem fudendo. Será que eu que assisto pouco? Vocês assistem esse tudo de jogo? Impossível. Impossível. 250. O meu time joga, se muito, sei lá, 75. Nem fudendo. Nossa.
And I don't think I know everything, but I think I know people. And I think I know who's intelligent, who's a critical thinker, who has good relationships, who's likely to be successful. And so I want somebody with experience in that role, not a perfect track record. I want somebody that's a good critical thinker that can advise me. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's made the promise to the fans to try everything imaginable to kick the crap out of Flamengo and win a championship.
Vai tomar no cu, Flamengo. De bobeira. Errado? Não posso ter errado, né? Porra, xingar o rival de bobeira nunca é uma coisa ruim.
I'm the one that they're going to want to throw out if after a number of years we're not competing for championships. It's not Andre. So I know that. So what I want is not the guy with the best track record. I don't even know who that would be. I want the guy who's the best thinker, with the best relationships, who gives me the best data. When that universe of players comes together, then you've got Alessandro Brito there, head of scouting, head of analysis, market intelligence. Honestly, he's going to be the one that's really educating us the most at who is not only good, but who fits into our style of play, right? The Botafogo way has to match up with the players we get. It is not about picking him out of the newspaper and saying, wow, look at that guy, he's amazing, because he might not fit within our system.
Caralho.
So, I'm very excited about these two gentlemen. I mean, look at what Alessandro did up at Atlético Mineiro. I mean, spectacular squad that he assembled there.
Valeu, molejinho. E a gente tem o dinheiro igual aos caras agora, pô. Tem jeito. Dinheiro tá brotando do bolso do malandro.
And don't think that there aren't dozens of players that they've considered in his role at a Serie A club very recently, the leading Serie A club. Don't think that he doesn't have already a number of really terrific targets. The next great player that, we got to put together a whole squad, whether it's a combination of the guys we have now or new guys. And, it's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of,
que você tem.
Good critical thinking. It's going to take some luck that some of the players that have done well elsewhere do well for us,
About that, and this is my last question, what's the...
Caralho. Porra, o Capelo, crente que ia fazer uma exclusiva boladona com o cara, fez 3 perguntas. Caralho. Ô, John Textor, vamos querer um saquinho de vírgula aí, mano. Mentira. Fala pra caralho mesmo. Fala. Quero nem saber. Fala pra caralho, John.
The profile of the player that you want. Of course, somebody that fits in your vision of football, but in terms of age, of nationality, of the perspective of another sale, he needs to be 22, 23 years old, maybe.
Well, one, you're never going to hear that come from me. Other than like the basic sort of tenets that I've observed. I want extremely smart players. I want again, I want a player that's calm, that sees the game in slow motion. Because...
então é o Carly. Porque assim, o Carly porra, me amarro no Carly, mas caralho, câmera lenta tá sempre. Sempre. Tem que trazer o Bochecha de volta, hein? Tem que trazer o Bochecha de volta. Porra, o Bochecha é assim. Porra, invertido, caralho.
You know, football is all about timing. If it takes you too long to collect the ball, then you don't have the right amount of time to protect yourself from the press and make the right decision as to where you're going with it. So for me, I'm looking for character. I'm looking for intelligence. I'm looking for a sense of calm. I'm always looking for speed, right? It's the one thing you can't teach.
Aí é foda.
Right? You know, you're...
Bochecha tá onde? Eu vi aqui que ele tá, acho que no Curitiba. Mas sempre bom checar o elenco do Real Madrid, porque é lá onde ele merece estar.
And pace of play is often how quickly you receive and make those decisions, right? The ball moves much faster than any man can move. But there are times where everything breaks down and you just need somebody that can haul ass down the field, you know, really quickly. And so I look for that. But as far as how this football program is going to run, we have this incredible luxury to combine, you know, the intelligence and experience of Andre with the same for Alessandro, with a coaching staff that we believe we're all expecting somebody that comes with a great amount of understanding of the game. People that, you know, I think many of the top coaches we've been looking at are largely responsible for the style of play for some great teams and some, you know, have contributed to the world of football. And that entire team is going to make these decisions on the players. And I'm going to have to make the final decision. And I hope that there are...
Ele que vai passar o cartão, irmão. A carta é ele.
Arguing with each other. And they're fighting for players. And I hope that Andre comes to me and says, you know, John, coach doesn't see it, but I believe in this kid. And so he'll win some. The coach will win some. Alessandro will win some. But in the end, the fans have to look to me. You know, I have to make a decision based on what this group comes together with, and I won't have a specific player in mind because they're, you know, I'm no different than a fan.
Caralho,
right?
mano.
I mean, football is the one sport where, I mean, you literally can walk down the street and there's a really good chance that the person you bumped into knows as much about it as you do.
Boa, por isso que eu não sei nada. Por isso que eu não sei porra nenhuma de futebol. Todo mundo, ninguém sabe porra nenhuma.
I mean, it is the people's sport. And we've all watched it since we were 2 years old and we all...
Cara, eu cravo, tá? Eu cravo que eu sei mais de futebol do que o técnico Marcos Paquetá. Papo reto. Eu sei mais. Se coloca o time na minha mão ou na mão do Marcos Paquetá e dá um mesinho pra cada um, caralho, eu faço acontecer. Quem não sabe é um cara que treinou o Botafogo aí durante, sei lá, 7 jogos, perdeu 6, sei lá, uma porra dessa. Eu sei. Papo reto. Eu cravo. Na resenha eu sou melhor. Saber quem é ruim e quem é bom, dá pra saber, todo mundo sabe. Eu sei. Um mês de time. Porra, irmão, eu dou o poder na mão de alguém ali, porra, tranquilamente.
See what we see, and we know when things don't work, and we know when players are good, and we know when they're talented, but, you know, these professionals that we have, from Andre to Alessandro to the staff and coach that we might hire, they're the people that really take it to another level, not people like me. I just need to know that the work has been done, the analysis has been done. I don't want players on a hunch. I don't want to say, oh, he's the greatest, I don't know. He's the greatest Brazilian that came out of the greatest academy. He's been playing well in Europe, and we got to get him back. You know, there are people I'm going after that are in that sort of way. You can't always get them back. The kids have grown up in another country, and maybe the player would come back, but the 17-year-old girl that was born in Spain won't come back or something. So I think we're going to see some really interesting decisions. We are going to be adding players. So for the fans that contact me on Twitter that say we need players, they're right. You know, I don't want them yelling at me.
Vai acontecer. vamos gritar contigo. É porque ele falou girl no sentido de... o cara pode até voltar, o cara que tá na Europa, mas a filha dele, que cresceu em outro país, não pode não querer. Então a vida desse cara já mudou, entendeu? Um exemplo aqui, o Marcelo. Ele pode até voltar uma vez, ele pode até vir pro Brasil, Botafogo, mas o filho dele, que cresceu na Espanha, na Europa, talvez não queira. E aí seja o suficiente pra não trazer, entendeu?
Sometimes it's good I don't speak Portuguese.
Por exemplo, essa live aqui tu ficaria um pouco bolado. Mas eu te amo, I love you so fucking much, bro. I love you a lot. You are tight, you are awesome, you are stud. I love you. Let's have a drink sometime. And you can pay the bill because you are a billionaire.
Yeah, that's true. Are you a fan of Moneyball?
No, I think that data, I'm a technology guy, so obviously I believe in data. I think the worlds have to be combined. Moneyball is sort of a pure, kind of almost an actuarial science applied to football.
Caralho, o Capelo foi crente.
Vambora!
O Capelo foi crente, queria falar, porra, me amarro. E o Capelo devia estar com o pau na mão já. Porra, também aquela parte. Porra, pá. Chora, Capelo. Sacanagem, tá?
I think that when somebody comes to you and in your staff and says, well, I just see it. He's gifted, he's talented. I have to get this player. I think the data will typically back that up. I mean, if he looks great on the field and he can beat anybody one-on-one, but he's only completing 72% of his passes, well, he's probably not as good as he looks, So I think the combination of what we've learned with clubs like Brentford and the Premier League, we've done a great job with it. I'm a big fan of Brentford as well. I can't say that as a Crystal Palace owner because I hate Brentford now. I watched a lot of that team in particular, sort of moving up from lower divisions, and there's a lot to learn from that. I just believe a combination of the art and the science.
Caralho, ele é muito pica! Puta que pariu! Eu te amo! Eu te amo pra caralho, bilionário do bem. Bilionário do bem. Caralho. Porra! Tô maluco. Pau duro. Vou falar pra vocês, rapaziada, vou pegar uma água, vou dar uma mijada, mas eu vou bater a punheta ali. Porque eu estou excitado. Excitado pra caralho. Nossa senhora. Um minutinho. Vou me masturbar. Foda-se.